This short presentation is an introduction to the evening class Talking of Trains. Hope you enjoy these pictures and a little bit of information about Talking of Trains, and we hope that you will want to come and join us when we start our new term of meetings on the 21st of September. Railway interest begins in a variety of ways. For many, we may still remember childhood delights of train spotting. Others perhaps have found a fascination with railways from films or books. Perhaps your railway interest has been kindled by the various television programmes, most notably the likes of Michael Portillo on his railway journeys with Bradshaw, and more recently Tim Dunn and others. Whatever your interest, I hope you will find Talking of Trains not only entertains but informs. In 2022 we are actually 62 years young, and in all that time there have only been 3 lecturers looking after the various meetings. Talking of Trains began with John Gilkes, followed by Jerry Sivia, and more recently myself, Dick Crane. It's hard to believe that it is now some 70 years since a group of enthusiasts began the heritage movement with the preservation of first the Tallaght Llyn, soon to be followed by the Festiniog and other narrow gauge railways in rural Wales. But railway preservation took a huge step forward when in 1960 the Bluebell Railway in Sussex became the first passenger carrying standard gauge line. At Talking of Trains, we regularly celebrate the amazing extent and variety of Britain's heritage railways. And as we do so, we hope that it will fascinate you and interest you and attract you to go and travel and support these wonderful steam railways. And we do not forget that heritage railways come in all shapes and sizes. We do concentrate mostly on standard gauge, but equally we like to feature various miniature and narrow gauge railways. Prior to the nationalisation of the railways in 1948, the early railway companies employed a wide variety of motive power, demonstrating the rapid development of steam locomotion. Our railway history was to change significantly with the Transport Act of 1947, which saw from the beginning of 1948 the previous railway companies coming under the nationalised banner of British Railways. There was a very interesting period of time that followed the nationalisation of the railways. Not only were a few diesel locomotives introduced in those early months, including 10,000 and then later 10,001, but many other steam locomotives were still constructed. In fact, nearly 1,000 standard gauge steam locomotives were constructed between 1948 and 1960. Some were to have very important roles, including 2 of the new Britannia locomotives, which operated for a number of years, the Prestige Golden Arrow. But as the steam locomotives were being built, diesel locomotives and rail cars were rapidly beginning to take over many of the main and branch line railways in Great Britain. Dieselisation was envisaged as a stopgap to widespread electrification, but progress was slow north of London's third rail network of suburban electrification and London transport. Despite widespread modernisation, British Rail continued to build steam locomotives until the final one emerged from Swindon Works in the spring of 1960 and was named Evening Star. At Talking of Trains, we do not make any apologies that we enjoy regular evenings with nostalgia, and for very many of us, our first love remains steam locomotives. But all railway history isn't as positive as nostalgia, but it can be quite exciting. And we do need to look back at some of the changes that perhaps we didn't welcome. And one of them surely was the 1963 Beeching Report. That was to change the future of our railways very dramatically. And it spelt the end of thousands of route miles and many railway stations and the final demise of steam locomotives. The 1960s saw enthusiasts travelling from one region to another to mark the end of steam and to travel on lines that were closing following the Beeching Report. Not just branch lines were to close. Main lines, as we see on the top left there, like the Great Central, were sadly to close, in that case, in September 1963. Steam continued to operate on freight services in the northeast of England until the autumn of the following year, 1967. The last main line to regularly use steam locomotives on express passenger services was the former South Western Railway main line through Surbiton from Waterloo to Weymouth, and steam continued to operate until July 1967. The final curtain came down on British Rail steam operation, other than the Vale of Rydal narrow gauge railway, when the infamous 15 guinea special, the price of the tickets, operated from Liverpool Lime Street to Carlisle and return on the 11th of August 1968. The sad demise of steam caused many to lose interest in their railway hobby, and for many it was a sad sight, indeed it was, to see steam locomotives that once had gleamed in their various colours and operated on main and branch lines throughout Great Britain to rust away to a seeming final demise in the various scrap yards. But interest in railways didn't die. There were many interesting developments that followed the end of steam, and none more so than the introduction in the mid and late 1970s of the Intercity 125 diesel trains. Many people have probably rightly said that it was these modern trains that saved Britain's express railways. Freight was to change very dramatically, from the wagon load traffic, which we see on the top right picture, to the bulk traffic, such as this petroleum train on the bottom right of this picture. Other exciting developments took place, and in 1973 we had the opening of the Channel Tunnel, and it was also the year when the Railways Bill passed through Parliament, heralding the end of the nationalised railway and privatisation to gradually take over Britain's railways. Whatever our political views may have been on privatisation, it certainly has produced a colourful and in many ways a much more rapidly modernised railway. Many of the private companies introduced new fleets of trains, and particularly electric trains on main and secondary lines have rapidly developed. We all thought 1968 meant the end of steam on Britain's main lines, but it was not to be so. And in 1971, King George V, as you see on the top left picture, returned to Britain's main lines with a series of trial runs, primarily to see if it was still possible in the modern age to run occasional steam charter services. It was deemed to be successful, and the end result, as we see now in the 21st century, are regular steam charter trains on Britain's main lines in almost all parts of the country. So there is still a very wide and a very interesting hobby in Britain's railways, and indeed overseas railways as well. And at Talking of Trains, we try to cover as wide as possible agenda and variety in our programme. We hope you'll look up on the website and see the programme for the new term. And we look forward to welcoming you. Don't worry that you might not think you know as much about trains as others who may be there. There is a very wide variety of people who come to Talking of Trains, both male and female. We welcome you all. And whatever may be your interest, detailed or casual, we hope that you'll come along on Wednesday the 21st of September when our new term begins. The cost for the whole term of 21 meetings is just £50, and as an introduction, admission to our first meeting is free. We do keep the meetings punctual from 7 to conclude at 9 p.m. The library hall where we meet has a free car park, and to reach the car park you need to travel down Ewell Road and turn into Berrylands Road, which is just to the north of the library hall. And turning into Berrylands Road, you then turn almost immediately down a narrow roadway which leads to the back of the hall and the free car park. If travelling by train, the walk is about 10 minutes from Surbiton Station. If you leave from the main booking hall exit, turn right, continue along St Mark's Hill till you get to the main crossroads with the school opposite on your left. Turn right at the crossroads, go over the railway along Ewell Road, and you will find the entrance to the library hall as you see in the bottom right hand picture, and the door should open automatically as you approach it. Go up the stairs and you will follow the signs to the main meeting hall. We welcome you. We look forward to meeting you, and we hope that you'll decide to come not just to the first meeting but as often as possible through the new term, and hope that you'll find the meetings not only enjoyable but informative, and equally I'm sure you will meet many new friends. We look forward to welcoming you to Talking of Trains.